What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Quartering, and I don't think there's any denying that just about everything in everyday life is far too political these days. Whether it's the pop culture scene being invaded by cringe on the nose everyday modern politics, or it's the dating scene, as we saw with the New York subway filled with bizarre socialist advertisements from some dating website. I forget even which one it was. Now there's a new article entitled "Insufferable Man Writes Essay Whining About Women Who Won't Date Him," when in fact, the article in and of itself that he wrote was anything but that. However, those who want literally everything in their life to be political see it that way. Here's the original article. Undateable at 29. Are my views too, quote, problematic for Hinge and Bumble? Politics has turned dating into a perilous pursuit, says David Bates. Two friends of mine were asked at a dinner party a characteristics they look for in a man. One talked about left-leaning, socially conscious Guardian reader, and the other reeled off a memorable triptych about likes pints, can't see, has a big dong. My instinct was to assume the more lascivious answer to be the truer, but I'm beginning to doubt myself because dating, it seems, has been swallowed up by the culture wars, and where once we had types, we now have factions. Of course, everyone still has their deal breakers. When I surveyed more of my female friends last week, their answers were personal. No one goes to Dubai on holiday, no gamers, no dirty bathrooms, no one who wants to get married. One told me she'd been on a date with a man who was grossed out by a rose from outside province. But their responses were tribal too. Many from my skewed sample, all university educated London dwellers between 24 and 33, there was a reoccurring theme. No Tories allowed. If it says conservative on their hinge, it's a big fat no from me. One said. Another remarked that any non-liberal vibes are a big turnoff. Only a couple admitted that they would date a conservative voter, which mimics a trend I've noticed during a hefty stretch of singledom. My Hinge profile conveys the way I look, my hobbies, my occupation, my level of education, my poke status, and my politics. There is an option to display whether you are liberal, conservative, moderate. Mine is set to liberal because I think it's true, and because to do otherwise would be a romantic disaster. But on top of that, your answer prompts things like, I'm looking for, together we could, and you should not go out with me if. I've looked at a lot of profiles, read thousands of prompts, and never seen one that criticizes the Labor Party, which is their Democratic or Liberal Party. Those deriding the conservatives, though, are plentiful. One common response is basic. You should not go out with me if you are a conservative. And with the position comes a list of ideological requirements ostensibly displayed, which feel incongruous with attraction. Incongruous with attraction. Or in prevalent prompt rates today, we could dismantle the patriarchy. I mean, sure, I'm up for it. Let's improve the world. But are you sure that's the best place to start? Look, here's the reality of it all. You know, the idea that you would be really concerned with how your potential life partner or dating partner votes is setting yourself up for disaster, because in most relationships, people grow, right? Long-term relationship, people's political opinions will change. So the idea that you need a partner that mirrors your exact political beliefs shows a true weakness of mind. It shows somebody who is not convicted in their belief and somebody who feels threatened by someone who would challenge them. If you were to say that I would only date somebody from the same political party or who believes and agrees exactly on the same things with me on various politics, I would argue that that's pretty much the same thing as saying I don't date smart women. I only want to date dumb girls because I don't want anybody to ever challenge my worldview, or vice versa for a woman who only wants to date a dumb guy because she's not confident in her own opinions. I wouldn't consider most of my friends even in the same political sphere as me, but it doesn't stop us from being friends. It doesn't stop me from forming deep relationships with people just because they may not vote the exact same way I do. This is a childish Gen Z mindset that leads to women's ovaries being like an elephant's graveyard after a long life of demanding men that entirely agree with them. That's how you end up with a group of these fake male feminists who all seem to turn out to be creeps. So then on the feminist website, the Mary Sue, They spin it saying insufferable man writes essay whining about women who won't date him. Sure, dude, it's the culture wars and not your personality. This is an article that, while obviously agrees with his op-ed, is a masterclass in gaslighting. We literally just had that woman tearing down all those weird politically charged dating, those posters in the New York subway from a dating app. There are many dating apps that want to push liberal politics, and that's fine. They're welcome to cut off half of their potential customers, and I'm sure there are dating apps that are exclusively for conservatives. I think it's kind of weak to write an op-ed whining about being single. The guy looks like reasonably good looking, but he certainly seems weak-minded as well, because maybe get out and meet somebody in real life instead of relying on dating apps, and maybe you'll find people who are less hyper political. Go out to a smaller town and attend farmers markets where people aren't spending, aren't terminally online, and maybe you'll find somebody who doesn't live and breathe how their potential partner votes. Dating is often difficult, sometimes hilarious, and frequently disappointing, but still we soldier on. Updating our profiles on Tinder and Bumble, hoping to meet like-minded soul out there to build a life with, or to at least spend an evening with. I am myself a big believer in online dating. That's how I met my husband, but I went on plenty of disastrous dates before him. Apparently, however, there's a new development that's ruining the dating lives of single men everywhere, the culture wars. Or at least that's the argument of writer David Bates, who makes his op-ed for the Times UK titled Undateable at 29, Are My Views Too Problematic? In the op-ed, Bates complains that proliferation of politics within dating profiles is ruining the experience for himself and others, writing dating, it seems, has been swallowed by the culture wars, and where we once had types, we now have factions. He's not wrong. That's the frustrating thing. This article is attempting to just ignore the reality and pretend that everybody wants this. I don't know if this is something that is, again, from the same type of people that would only exclusively date a certain political opinion. They probably only hang out with people who are similarly politically minded. Where I go out and I play in a darts league and a bowling league, guess what nobody talks about? Politics. They never talk about politics. We talk about literally everything else because we're normal people. We're not terminally online political weirdos. Bates continued, I've looked at a lot of profiles, read thousands of prompts, and you see Twitter, of course. I would argue that it's not dating sites having problems with your terrible opinions. But again, it's not his terrible opinions. He's simply saying that it's because he's conservative. It's the women on said dating sites that find your positions untenable, therefore making you undateable. Well, it's a chicken or the egg type scenario, because you have a lot of these dating apps who want to talk about, this is the correct political opinion, and most people aren't strong enough in their convictions to know any better. And ultimately what's going to happen is this guy's going to have to look for some conservative only dating app, which only further leads to divide and create in and out groups and these weird echo chambers that too many people self-search for. Tories, the UK's Conservative Party, are apparently miffed because they're being judged for their political views. But as conservatives on both sides of the Atlantic further to the right, there's no surprise that London's young, diverse, and overwhelmingly liberal singles don't want to date conservatives. Well, that's probably because they read sites like the Mary Sue and they think that they're all crazy, hyper-religious Bible thumpers, when the reality is most conservatives are just perhaps, the highest concentration of conservatives you'll find are slightly to the right of center. The numbers of extremes on both sides are tiny. The thing is, his luxurious hair cannot compensate for someone who believes that women shouldn't have reproductive freedoms. Again, this is she doesn't even, the writer of this doesn't even know that that's what he may or may not believe. I may vote conservative, but I'm absolutely pro-choice for people. So, and I think most conservatives that I know are. Outside of the ones that are hyper-religious, I've never met a conservative that's also pro-life, so to speak. I know people are, but it's speaking from my personal experiences. Most people that I know that are conservative are young, in their 30s and 40s, and they're business owners, and therefore they vote financially what's good for their business, which tends to be conservative. They're not super religious. They're not into reproductive rights conversations. They don't talk about the same things that all these weirdos online think about. And so, of course, the internet will dunk on him from a bunch of, childless, lonely weirdos who will live their life that way and then wonder why nobody likes them. You see here, people are seeking an ideological match are somehow misguided. Yes, sir, those are important. And if you don't understand that, then maybe you are undateable. Well, the reality is that if you are seeking out somebody, if your feeble mind can only surround itself with other people that on default or by default agree with everything you say, I can't imagine a more boring relationship. From somebody who's been in a long-term relationship, the back and forth or even arguing is what keeps things interesting. If you're so pathetically afraid to be challenged on your opinions, then, well, I guess you can go to these dating apps and you can find somebody who agrees with you. My guess is that marriage isn't going to work out because it's based on your own mental weakness and what is sure to be an exceedingly boring relationship. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.